What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the Mechabre, a legendary arc energy sniper rifle that was introduced with this year's Festival of the Lost, and it's essentially modeled after a Gundam weapon and is pretty damn sweet. Now straight off the bat, the version of this weapon which drops after the completion of the quest for Festival of Lost this year is pretty much already ready and kitted to go into PvP. The roll on there, I wouldn't change too much on that. There are some other considerations which we'll discuss when we look at the PvP side, but at the same time I will also share what I imagine to be the best role for PvE for this particular weapon. Looking at the base stats of this weapon, the impact and the range are fairly high, which is one of the reasons why this works so well in PvP. And on the other hand, we have fairly middling stats on the stability, handling, and reload speed, which we're going to try and augment a little bit through, some different barrels and magazines. Starting us off with that PvP role that I referred to at the beginning of the video, we absolutely want to start out by using corkscrew rifling as our barrel. The reason for this is simply due to the fact that we add a little bit of stability, a little bit of range, a little bit of handling, essentially an equal amount to all three of those stats. And since we start with fairly close values on all three of those, this is the best way for us to increase the overall value of the weapon. We pair that with accurized rounds in the magazine, which gives us an even bigger bump to range, which means that we can hit for full damage from even further away. And that then paired with the two traits which we use in trait 1 and 2, namely being snapshot sights and opening shot, means that in the case of snapshot sights, we're going to be able to ADS much quicker, so we can make sure that we land the first shot. And again, as paired with opening shot, it means that for that first bullet, we are getting more aim assist, we're getting more range, and our accuracy cone shrinks even more, which means that we have a much higher percentage of landing a headshot if we make sure that we, aim for it. Now, I do want to make one recommendation here, and that is that what could also potentially work here, due to the flinch changes that have been introduced to sniper rifles with the most recent patches, that you could also potentially swap out snapshot sights here for no distractions. No distraction does give you flinch reduction after being ADS'd for 1 second, and that can be accounted to being able to still land shots while being under duress, while being fired on by players. So that's certainly an option if you would rather use that. If you feel that the flinch is unbearable for you and you'd rather use that instead of snapshot sights. But personally, for me, I tend to also snipe first and then engage. So in those cases, I usually get the drop on the enemy players. And so flinch isn't that big a deal, because by the time the enemy knows that you're there, it's because your bullet has gone through their head. And so, things that are dead are not going to shoot you back and flinch you. But in any case, your mileage may vary. So absolutely, that is another option in trait 1. Now, when it comes to our origin trait, we have search party here, and this is one of the reasons why this is pretty damn sweet, because again, as I've mentioned right now, if you choose to swap snapshot sights for no distraction, the point is that as long as you make use of search party as and the effect of this origin trait, then you're not going to miss out too much on that additional ADS speed that you get from snapshot sights. Now, how search party works is it means that as long as you are 15 meters away from anybody else in your party, then you're going to also get increased ADS time. So that is something that you can bear in mind. If you, however, have snapshot sights and search party active, that is going to be insanely blistering fast ADS times, and that's also something that is fairly awesome to use. So again, you really have two options there. Now, when it comes to our masterwork, again, anybody that's familiar with my build guides will know that I tend to favor the range stat over most other stats. The only other one that I would sometimes consider is stability, but in this case, we absolutely do want to pick up range as well. That's actually going to almost maximize out our range stat on this weapon, and that means then that we have almost an equal amount of impact and an equal amount of range, which means that you're just maximizing on the lethal distance that the sniper rifle can cover. Last but certainly not least, we are using targeting adjuster on here. Now, the aim assistance on this weapon is not that great, but this is just going to increase that even a little bit more. And anything that you can add, more into the pipe here to just make sure that you land that first accurate headshot is going to be to your benefit. Taking us over to the PVE side of this weapon, then what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be swapping out your barrel to arrowhead break. Arrowhead break is good because it gives us a huge amount of recoil reduction, and it actually gives us a slight bump to handling as well. Now, the reason why we take arrowhead break instead of something like corkscrew rifling is because when we use this weapon in PvE and when we pair it with something like Vorpal weapon, for instance, it is super important that we are hyper accurate in hitting those crit spots to maximize the amount of damage that we deal with the sniper rifle. Now, the bounce intensity, the recoil of the sniper rifle is not ridiculous, but it is noticeable. However, if you slap the arrowhead break in there, that is really going to even out that bounce to almost nothing, and you'll be able to land those follow-up snipe shots in much quicker succession without having to adjust your aim, which means overall more damage for you. Now, we are going to pair that with tactical mag, which is going to increase our reload speed, because again, in the case of PvE, and the main difference between that and PvP is you are most likely going to work in terms of phases. You're going to be in the mix, maybe killing out like trash, anything like that, and then there's going to be a phase of the fight that you're going to try and dump as much damage onto a boss or a big enemy, and in that case you want to be able to land as many snipe shots as fast as possible. Reload speed happens for this, and you want to be hitting them as accurate as possible, and stability absolutely helps for that. Now, moving over into our trait 1 and 2, you have some options here, but I personally feel like the best overall combination for PvE is most likely using Clown cartridge in trait 1 and then using something like Vorpal weapon in trait 2. Now, this is going to be a weapon that we damage bosses or tough enemies from a distance away. So absolutely, Vorpal weapon doesn't need any explanation. A Vorpal weapon just increases your damage against bosses, mini bosses, and vehicles. So that's a no-brainer. But the reason why we take Clown cartridge is it's just going to help with a sustained amount of bullets that you're trying to throw down range. So this basically says that whenever you reload this weapon, you get a random overfill from reserves. Now, this can be anywhere from a 10% overfill to a 50%, so you can get basically half of an additional mag into the weapon, and that can help you go from like the 3 bullets, which are usually in a mag, to basically 5. So that's gonna again mean that you can get 2 more shots out with Vorpal weapon, with more damage and everything like that before you have to reload. So again, this is probably your best bet in terms of additional damage that you can get from this weapon. Interestingly enough, this sniper rifle can also like roll with Vault Shot on the second trait. So if that's something that you're interested in, absolutely, that is an availability there, and it can be quite interesting. Now, in terms of the origin trait, of course, we have Search Party here. Now, this is a little bit more difficult when you are playing in a PvE situation versus a PvP. Generally, in PvE, players tend to sort of stick together and be closer to one another than they are in PvP. Sometimes in PvP, you can peel off to the side and you can be completely on your own. And definitely, Search Party benefits you there, because the idea is you only benefit from this origin trait if you are 15 meters away from other players. However, this will give you an increased faster, aim down sight speed, and it will give you better movement speed while you are ADSing. But again, you have to be more than 15 meters away from players to capitalize on that. Again, from the masterwork perspective, we absolutely want to slap a ranged masterwork in here. The further we can be away from damage, from enemies, from trouble, while dealing our damage is better for us. And so absolutely that helps out here. If for some reason you feel that even after arrowhead break being in your barrel, this weapon is still not giving you enough accuracy, you can absolutely put a stability masterwork in here. But I definitely feel you should try it out with the arrowhead break first and see how much that affects your follow-up shot accuracy before you sacrifice the additional range that you get from a masterwork. Now, since this is going to be a way for us to deal additional damage to bosses or tougher enemies, it absolutely makes sense that in our weapon mod we use boss spec, because that's just going to give us an additional 7.7% of damage on those kinds of targets. As usual, this is your cheat sheet snapshot with both the PvE and the PvP version of this, for you to easily be able to screenshot this and not have to come back to the video the entire time. And that's gonna be it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know if you like using the Mechabre in PvP. Have you tried using it in PvE? Are you a fan of the aesthetic of this weapon? It's got a really sweet sound when it reloads and when you shoot. I think overall this is a pretty decent addition to your arsenal, especially due to the fact that it's so easy to get a very solid PvP roll by simply just going through the quest for Festival of the Lost and getting that for you. At the time of this video dropping, I believe there's about a week left of Festival of the Lost, so if you for some reason haven't snagged this yet, definitely go out there and grab it. But that's it from me. It's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world, and until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.